All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 10th Planning Commission meeting. Time is 7:01. I will call this meeting to order. Secretary DeBalt, could you please take attendance?
Schenkel,
Present.
Newman, Manchester,
Present.
Wortella,
Present.
Cox,
Present.
Holmes,
Present.
Bishop,
Present.
DeLong, and DeBalt.
All right.
Chairman Schenkel,
Yes.
Tanya DeLong did contact me and said she's going to try to remote in. She's in a family situation out of state, so I'll monitor it, and she might end up, when she gets a connection, being able to remote in, but she did contact me.
She did me as well. Thank you. Okay. Next item on our agenda for this evening is the approval of our agenda. Trust everyone's had a moment to review this agenda. Are there any questions, comments? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
This is Member Wortella. I propose the approval of tonight's agenda as submitted.
Motion by Wortella,
Holmes, I second.
support by Holmes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. And now we will open it up for citizen comments. There is no citizens present with us tonight. Mr. Mallory, anyone online?
No, sir.
Thank you. We will move on to the next agenda item, approval of minutes from September 12th. Any comments or questions on the minutes from the last meeting? If not, I will call for a motion to approve those minutes from September 12th.
Holmes, I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Motion by Holmes, support.
This is Cox, I second.
Support by Cox. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Thank you. All right, we have a couple planning commission action items here. First on our list is 6I. Village Attorney Andrew Horn has a presentation for zoning and legal opinion on the drive-through. So,
On that, I just wanted the Planning Commission to be aware, what we're going to look at is, at minimum, every other month, potentially every month, depending upon agenda, to bring in either Andrew or another expert within the area of planning, zoning, just to give a brief presentation on a subject matter, but to allow a question and answer period without a project, a site plan, or a formal action item in front of the Planning Commission. So we thought it would, we're not going to look at lengthening the meetings out a ton, but to take advantage of some of the agendas that don't have a lot of action items, just to give you the opportunity to ask questions as they relate to zoning. Andrew's going to speak specifically to drive-through windows here in the village. It's a topic that has come up before in the past. It's a topic that often I hear absolutely forbidden, and not being an expert in zoning and pecking around, I don't see where it's expressly written, so I asked Andrew if he'd invest the time to research that. So that's the specific topic. He'll take 10, 12 minutes to let you know the results of that. Ask any question on that topic, but also this is our opportunity, or specifically your opportunity, if you had other questions, to feel free to go ahead and ask Andrew, and we can have an open conversation then to aid your group along. So with that, Andrew obviously has a lot of experience in municipal work. I trust him wholeheartedly and love the work product he produces. So, and he is, the one thing too I like to point out, Andrew's responsibility, he doesn't represent Jim Mallory, he doesn't represent any individuals. he looks out for the best interest on a legal foundation for our village. So he is the village attorney.
Thanks, Jim. So with that introduction, it's not even so much a presentation on the importance of zoning. I'm preaching to the choir here. You all know the importance of zoning. It's so that we don't make any type of arbitrary decisions or decisions based on past simply precedent, anything like that. Every situation you see, as you know, is different. Every situation, it can be 6 inches on a fence, it can be decibels and noise. So the zoning ordinance, as we see it, is what's permitted. Within reason, are there exceptions to that? And we were addressed, or there was, somebody came to us a couple weeks ago and said, hey, what about drive-throughs? And we've dealt with it in the past, and we know there's examples in the village. And Mr. Mallory indicated there's individuals who said, hey, this is expressly prohibited. And as much as we could do research on it, we couldn't find anything that says drive-throughs are permitted, or excuse me, prohibited. So then it becomes a question of, well, are they permitted if they're not prohibited? And for that, I think we've got our answer right within our own zoning code as it is. So we went to 475-76, and that's the permitted C2 commercial district uses in that district. We went there. This specific property was reportedly in the C2 district, so we looked at that, and the very first point is any permitted use or any use is permitted in the C1 commercial district are also permitted in C2. So from there we went on to the C1, went back to the C1 commercial district, and it says in subsection P that a restaurant or similar eating establishment is allowed in the C1. So therefore a restaurant or similar eating establishment is allowed in a C2 too. We went to the Michigan Food Act law from Michigan statutes and to find out exactly, as this was a request for a coffee shop, if a coffee shop is a dedicated food establishment, and by Michigan law, it technically is. The definition of a food establishment was a fixed or mobile restaurant, coffee shop, cafeteria, short order cafe, and it goes on to list a number of others there. So we figured, hey, listen, in the C2 district, there's no question that a coffee shop is permitted in our village ordinance. Then it came time to look at the actual drive-through issue. We have in a C4 district drive-ins, but we made it's a very significant difference between a drive-through and a drive-in. Drive-in, you're going to A&W or something similar. You drive up, you order, they come to your window, give you your food. Your drive-through, as we know it, is you're shooting through. We specifically looked that up in the statutes as well, and it was very similar. So we went back to 475-76, which was the permitted uses in commercial district number 2. And you got to remember, these are not special land uses. These are already permitted. And it says in letter K, accessory uses or buildings when in accordance with provisions of 475-111. So what we've done in our ordinances is said, hey, listen, if you have an accessory use for a permitted use, it's going to be allowed. So we went to the section that outlines what an accessory use or building is, and it says any use which complies with all of the following conditions may be operated as an accessory use. The first one is it clearly incidental or customary to and commonly associated with the operation of the permitted use? So a restaurant. Is it incidental and customary to the operation of a restaurant? And those are the types of decisions. They're not up for us to make. Staff can make a recommendation, but the Planning Commission makes that ultimate decision. B, is it operated and maintained under the same ownership as the permitted use? Yes, that would be the case. It does not include structures or structural features inconsistent with the permitted uses. There's nothing to say, hey, listen, if you're having a drive-through, it doesn't have to meet every other standard in the village or the C2 district, whether it's parking or space or anything like that. But just in terms of the use, we couldn't find anything that said it was inconsistent with permitted uses. Does it include residential occupancy? No. Is it an accessory building? No. Is there lot coverage limitations? No. Are there fallout shelter limitations that are applicable? No. So most of these accessory usage requirements were not applicable at all. The one that it came down to was, would the planning commission find that it's clearly incidental and customary to a restaurant to have a drive-through? So if the ordinance, and again, we couldn't find anything prohibiting drive-through windows, if we don't have one prohibiting it, then we have to follow the following, or we should follow this layout, and that is, one, is a coffee shop a restaurant? Yes, by state law it is, so it's allowed in a C2 district. The second question, the question for the planning commission, is if the planning commission finds that a drive-through window is incidental and customary to or commonly associated with the operation of a restaurant or a coffee shop, then a drive-through window is a permitted use, not a special land use, but a permitted use in the C2 district. So again, I know we have 3 drive-throughs, two banks, and 1 coffee shop, as I understand it. I couldn't think of anything else in the area. But we looked at it from a legal perspective and went, we think it's probably a permitted use in the area, but ultimately it would be the planning commission's call. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Tried to sum it up there.
I have a question, I guess 2 parts. This is Member Wortella. You tried to differentiate, or you did differentiate between a drive-through and a drive-in, and they both sound like they're the same thing. The McDonald's restaurant, you drive through, they have a drive-through window, but you also can park. Is that a drive-in or a drive-through, or how would you call that?
So we looked at it as, it's a good question, because I mean, the more we went back and forth, we struggled with it at first. The idea is a drive-in restaurant is, I believe there was one at time out here, and I can't think of the name of it. Bobby's?
Bobby's.
Bobby's. That would be a drive-in restaurant where you're driving into it. It's only allowed in specific districts. The drive-through restaurant is this idea that there's a window, you're going, and the state law specifically says that it is in which food or drink is prepared for direct consumption through service on the premises or elsewhere. So.
One more, if I may. You mentioned there are several drive-throughs, drive-ins. There's also a pharmacy in town here.
Oh.
Is that a drive-through or drive-in? And I guess that's been around quite a long time. Would that be grandfathered in if an ordinance came up? I guess a little bit further also, if it is allowed to have a drive-through or drive-through, does the village of Vicksburg then have the right to say that it shall operate in a certain way, it shall operate in a certain manner, it should be designed, and so on?
A good question, and I didn't think of the pharmacy. There's another example. I would consider the pharmacy a drive-through, absolutely. It's not a food establishment, but again, it would be in whatever district pharmacies are authorized, it would be an accessory use, as we say it, under these same standards. The second part of your question in regard to can we control the standards? Absolutely, the village can. It would be a question of what do we put or what do we have in the ordinances. Right now, there wouldn't be anything in there, but there's nothing to say that an ordinance can't be created to specifically say, hey, drive-throughs are allowed between these hours, or you have to have these standards. You have to have 2 windows. You have to have 1, anything of that sort.
This is Rick Manchester. I got a question. I think you were probably involved with the changing of the zoning for the funeral home, I never really heard any update on, I think you were involved in some possibly setbacks and stuff. I just know it kind of got put on hold.
So I think, I was going to say, and I digress to Mr. Mallory, I think when I last heard on it, we were there for very limited transaction with it, but it was put on hold for the funeral home.
Yeah, they're in a redesign, almost a complete redesign type site plan
Okay.
internally right now.
Okay, because I know we originally thought maybe it had to have, see how it got changed to C2, it had to have that setback because it was up against, I never heard anything back, I just heard that it was.
They're
were redesigning.
evaluating, even, and I don't know which way they're leaning, so any of my comments don't take that way.
No,
They're
no, I was
even
just- I was
evaluating
just
a
curious.
complete new structure there.
Okay, I just
That
hadn't
would only
really
be
heard
like one
much.
structure.
Okay, it just seemed like they were really pushing to move and then kind of got, I didn't hear anything back and I wasn't sure what really happened after that meeting.
And we initially discussed some of the zoning issues there, and we discussed it with them initially, and it never got past that
Okay.
from our
All
perspective.
right, I just,
Yep.
thank you.
I mean, on that note, it's interesting, well, this week, today alone, I know of one email, that I sent to Andrew and Chris Hamilton. I'm an educated, guess, I would bet 6-8 times a month, I'm asked a formal question, reference a zoning issue, half of them at least potential new development type questions that we answer as a staff, and they don't reach the planning commission because they're just ideas on the table, if you will. And then I've, on some development that ultimately does come in front of one of the governmental entities, it's been something we've been working on for some time, but we've been asked until a pro forma that they don't want anything to get out, if you will. But rest assured, you have my word, when it needs to be noticed and go through, it goes through, but through the planning commission and ultimately council is what I mean.
I'm curious if there's any background or context related to the history of drive-ins in Vicksburg and why this is a sensitive subject.
It's the same question we had. That's the reality of it. I couldn't begin to tell you where it came from. I do know it's been raised in the past, and I mean, we finally addressed it with our own ordinances, but I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. We just had heard before a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, people have commented they're not allowed in Vicksburg. And so it's like, okay, I'm willing to invest time in village financial investment. Let's get a legal review on just this standalone an issue before it comes up. And we have nothing in the works that, this would be key to. But I just felt, again, it would be an opportunity for you guys, for Andrew to have a specific answer on a specific question, but also allow you guys to facilitate any conversation you want with Andrew as it might relate to his roles with the village and the planning commission and that. But no, we don't know, Matt. We just, once we got into it, it's like we can't find anywhere where we would be able to point to a potential developer that says, see, this is why you can't.
And it had been presented almost in the past that there would be an ordinance that specifically said drive-throughs are not authorized, and we looked day and night for that and couldn't find anything like that.
So my other question would be, in your review and maybe even research, did you do any research into ordinances from other municipalities that defined drive-through restrictions, rules, anything like that? And was there any commonalities that are worth discussing?
Absolutely, and it goes back to your question about the standards that the village could have, and that's the idea that, I mean, the majority of what we would see would be location or decibels of the microphone if there's an ordering platform in the back, location of the microphone, so that you're not sitting there and it's right out in front so everybody can see. So it really depends on the township. There weren't a number of other municipalities that addressed it. Many of them are like ours, and that is the idea that, well, it's an accessory use, it's not an accessory structure or anything like that. So yeah, there are standards, again, setback standards or anything like that definitely come into play as well. So.
Excellent timing, man. Pardon the interruption, gentlemen.
I don't think anybody in the audience is gonna.
As the cameras point to the ceiling. All right.
Andrew, I'm just, first off, thank you. I don't, honestly, up until you shared that information with me, to the degree that something as simple as a drive-through window, I had no idea, to the level that we would need to research that if someone came through with a proposal like that. And considering we have, I believe 4 is what I thought I counted, 2 bank, the pharmacy, and then the coffee shop. My question is this, and that is, I don't think we can kind of bubble wrap the village to make sure we cover everything. But by the same token, I'm just curious from your perspective, are we at risk if we don't have ordinances for issues, and I don't want to say specifically this, but in realizing that you could have a very aggressive developer that may take a hostile position if we don't agree to something? I'm just curious from your perspective, what your thoughts are.
No, another good question. I don't know how much we're at risk necessarily, because you still have strong ordinances elsewhere to say, hey, listen, these are permitted uses, but something like drive-throughs, it's not a terrible idea to have set hours, or you have to be so far back from the property line because it's not a structure. You're going back from the property line, but somebody may not want you having the drive-through lane 6 inches from their property. Right. So those are definitely things to consider. It hasn't, from what I understand right now, hasn't been abused by anybody who has a drive-through, but you could see where a developer could come in and again, if they get the proper permits and everything, it'd be how quickly can we get something in place, and I don't think you want to play that game. So, right. And then, like you said, where does it stop? What other things do you go on to next and say, should we have an ordinance for this? But
also, I got one quick one. This may be more for Jim. Do you know if we have any more of the older businesses we talked about that are still currently running that aren't in the proper zoning that we were going to look at?
We do. There's, by memory, 4 or 5. I don't think it's fair to look because they're all historic that
right.
we need to, but in the Silver Street, Highway Street area, I believe there's 3 located in that area that would need to be brought up to date.
I was just thinking because of, the situation with, you never know when someone buys and then they want to do something. It might be good to keep moving on that and get the zoning corrected for it.
Yeah, so. The plan is within this master plan process that will give us the strength, I'll say, or the educational point that, hey, these have to be cleaned up, and then that will propel us into, after the master plan's accepted, to make sure that that's corrected.
Okay, thank you.
I'm also in that topic, Bobby Durkee was a skill set that really added to our team. As I envision, certainly no later than spring, but more likely in the January, February timeframe, that we're going to have a new PEG fill that spot. So that will aid as well to those type of zoning issues that you can assign out and make sure staff does the legwork, and then have Andrew review that work as we move forward.
Any other questions for staff or village attorney regarding drive-through ordinance? Thank you, Mr. Horn.
No problem.
All right, next item on our list is election of officers. So each of you has a small slip of paper in front of you. Really the two positions that we have multiple nominations for are secretary and chairperson. And what I'd appreciate you doing is on your piece of paper, write down secretary and chair and then the name of the person that you would like to vote for. And while you're doing that, I have a question for the manager. Since there are two positions running unopposed, are those automatically receiving the nomination?
As long as they accept it.
Okay. And so both of those folks did accept at our
They
previous
would have
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, in the notes, it says that,
They accepted the nomination. Right. That already hold that position.
I'm sorry.
The other two positions.
How and it doesn't have to be this way. And Rick might help my memory as well as John, but in the past, and I don't know if it's never been a real stringent flow chart how this group selected these positions, but in the past, the night of, I think they went through and said, okay, chairperson, secretary, are you good with moving forward? And the secretary says yes, and then we've had a couple times where there's two people for one position, and same thing, they both agree to move forward. In fact, President Frisbee's here, I think 1 year goes back 5 or 6 years, and again, maybe the others can help my memory, but I think one person agreed, no, I'll step back if so-and-so does it.
Gotcha.
So it's however the group would want to proceed.
Yes.
I thought it might be respectful to Tanya. I nominated her, and I did a really poor job of sharing thoughts with the committee why I did. So, and I made some comments at a council meeting, and I thought it would be, again, helpful and respectful to Tanya if I clarified a couple points. First, I just want to very briefly just let everyone know the reason why I proposed her as a candidate is she's a previous business owner. She owned Tanya's Garage. I think that's a very unique position on this council, similar to John, the experience that John brings, past DDA president, brings a great perspective and passion for businesses in our community. And I also think the appointment of Tanya to the commission chairperson would also support the village's commitment to diversity. And so I just wanted to share that with you because, again, I did a real poor job at our last session in saying that. And lastly, I'll say, as I've already shared with Chairman Schenkel, this is no reflection on his tenure. I appreciate what Matt does. But I, again, just wanted to clarify those statements. Thanks.
Thank you. So, again, so we have two positions, secretary and chair, that have two nominations that will require a vote. And assuming treasurer and, which is Mr. Holmes, and vice chairman is Mr. Newman. Those are unopposed, did accept the nomination, so we'll be moving into those positions. So on your piece of paper, please write down secretary and the last name of whom you would like to vote for, as well as chair, last name of whom you would like to vote for. Please pass those to me. I will tally those very quickly, and we will move through.
The candidates for each one again?
Yes, sorry. For secretary, that is Cox and DeBolt. And for chair, that is DeLong and Schenkel.
Quick question for the members that are not here today. how are their votes counted
They-
and at what point?
They will not be counted. You can only vote in person on the governmental boards when they're open to the public.
Okay, I have the results from this. Our secretary will be Member Cox moving into this next year. And the chairperson will remain Schenkel for this next year. I want to say thank you to Mr. DeBalt for your service as secretary. Appreciate that very much. And welcome the new members of our leadership team as well. Okay, thank you for that, everyone. So the next piece of business we have is number 7, our DDA development finances. And Mr. Mallory, take it from here for our finances.
Yeah, your finances are in fine shape and not many expenditures. A few that are coming in. For the 150th year celebration downtown, to bring people into that, we did take out a full-page ad in the South County News that ran in October. If anyone saw that, we do use DDA dollars. I think that was $780. As the current bylaws are written, anything under $1,000 can be approved by the village manager. Village-wide, it is a limit of $5,000 I can approve. We have some banners that'll go up that's DDA related expenses. I do see probably in the month of January putting forth to add 2 tables in Oswald Park that will be DDA funds. And then underneath the grant program, I will speak about another amendment to the fiscal year we're currently in, to get your approval tonight to go ahead and make that amendment and then finalize it next Monday in front of the village council. But any questions specific to the financing, I sent out the, but it's so early in the fiscal year of, we just right now aren't in DDA expenditures.
This is Member DeBalt. Are the banners up yet, or did we purchase the banners yet, or for?
No, there's going to be 4 banners specific to the 150th anniversary. That'll be at the corner of Main and Prairie, and they'll be put up this week, and they'll be up for quite a bit, and then they'll transition into the holiday banners that we bought, I think, 2 years ago, and then we'll be looking, and under the village manager's report, I'll talk about 2023 downtown events, and we'll be looking at a year-long type banner being hung downtown through that process. So I think they're actually completed and made. Is that correct, Alex? And we have a 9:30 meeting with that company tomorrow, so because they also handle our social district signs and that type of thing. So hopefully, if all goes well, you'll see them tomorrow, or we'll definitely have an answer.
All right.
Any questions on financing or? Okay. On the grant program, we did go through. Very happy that 12 received requests on 12 grants. We reviewed these. Andrew reviewed them from a legal standpoint. Again, Andrew's representing the village of Vicksburg's interest to make sure that we're on a good foundation to expend public money, which has a public benefit that outweighs the building or personal private property benefit. and out of the 12 submissions, 9 met that criteria in full or in part. And the amendment, we set this up in the budget to be $36,000, and we started to, once we got, and as we go through these projects, and explain it, they're pretty cool things done. Almost $250,000 worth of investments by our local business leaders, with a request of about $140,000 assistance. Then we go through it from a standpoint not only legally, but would the auditors allow us to expense money like that? And we whittle that down. In looking at the projects that were left through that process, it was about $95,000 worth of private investment by the business owners. So I started to analyze the finances again as we're sitting in the fiscal year, and I think it's important to the village of Vicksburg to demonstrate, these type of things aren't done in a lot of communities our size, and we can stick right in Kalamazoo County or within our wingspan, to be able to have programs like this that encourage business investment in the community, might attract future developers to invest in our community. So my recommendation is going to be to seek approval from this board tonight to amend the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget as it pertains to the public improvement grant program to a total of $49,000. $12,000 of that we received from a foundation grant, so we would have $37,000 in it this year, and that will enable us to fund the request at a 50% level that we go through here tonight. But I'll ask for that at the end after you see the request, what they are. Tonight, we can do it one of two ways. We're recommending that on the 9 recommendations, we met with the subcommittee, Andrew and I did, to go through it with them and seek their input, is we can, well, of course, answer any questions you might have, but it's how this group wants to proceed. We can go through each request, answer the questions, and then at the end, vote to approve them all, go through them all, and at the end, return and vote each one individually. But either way is acceptable in whatever the group would want to do.
I'll just make an additional comment. It is for this commission's, notice is that each of these have been reviewed by staff and are putting forth a recommendation. And so I would just say from a process standpoint, it may be easier for the staff to go through all of them, answer questions, and then handle this as one vote versus individually. If there's any clarification needed, that maybe that helps.
Also, on the topic of process, tonight we're looking for approval and support, because ultimately this will next Monday go in front of the council to expense the money. If that is supported all the way through, the week of October 17th, we'll be getting a formal letter out to the awards of the grant. That would be, our goal is to be in their hand by the end of October. There are some you'll see of projects already completed, so we'd end up being able to write checks for those completed projects once all the appropriate paperwork that's documented in the requirements of that formal letter are received by the village. Projects that have not been initiated and thus not completed, it's on the business or property owner to complete that project, submit the paperwork as required by the grant, and we would only pay in a reimbursement type fashion after the work's completed, and move forward in that process. So if we're ready, we'll go through the projects that went through again. And well, of course, this is a PDF document that is generated. Let me see, just give me one quick second. We're gonna get out of Zoom a second. Because of the 50% level, it was coming out of the subcommittee group. So on the initial investment, this will, all right, I apologize for that. We're gonna, it's a difficulty of working on a home computer and then coming into, where's my Zoom? You know, I'll do it that way. I can still record the Zoom. We're on YouTube. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that, but what in the Dollar General storefront windows facing Prairie Street, which meets the definition of a facade and would have a public benefit to enhance the streetscapes as well as the social district. Currently, as you look through those videos, you're seeing the back of the coolers for the Dollar General. This program would involve public art that would create silk screens that would be seen from outside, and the pictures will depict the transformation of the village of Vicksburg from the 1800s, when, and they'll work in conjunction with the Historical Society. Mike Frederick and his team will have people involved to turn those photographs into screen that they can put on these windows. So it'll go from those early settling pictures all the way to the current look of Vicksburg. As people walk that section of the sidewalk, it'll show that transformation of the village. You can see he's estimating that it would be $7,500, and staff's recommendation is that it receives a 50% support. It is a facade improvement and public beautification, so it did meet the legal review. The wooden stitch, and one quick second. Had a quick staff conversation on a legal question I had of documents that'll be coming up. So,
Jim, if I could just ask, with each one of these, just for a really clear recommendation from staff that you are providing, you are recommending approval or not approval?
Yep. These ones, when we talk about dollar amounts, we're one, stating they met the legal requirement, and fiduciary, we can expense the public money for this project. So we are recommending approval, support and approval of a 50% match up to $3,750 on this window screen project. The wooden stitch had multiple requests. Some met parameters, others didn't. But they had a request of funds for that of $7,500. And again, well, I can now, I guess, because it's a Word document. And we are giving them an option, is our recommendation, that, and this is at a 50% level, so on the alley side of the building, they're looking at a mural for that. In that alley, we just made part of the social district to get more public use out of it. But on the front side, facing Prairie, there's a front overhang that is on the front facade that is easily seen as you walk by. It currently, back dating to whenever, it's currently covered by shingles, though it's not a roof. And they have a pretty cool upgrade to a metal type look of that frontal facade. So our recommendation is approval, first, to provide that business owner with the option of either project, because the mural is going to take some prep work for a contractor to get the cement all prepared, and that outside of the scope of this. But if they wanted to move on the Prairie Street side one, it would, and that's at 50%, so that would be at $3,900. And staff is recommending the option for that we offer the owner up to $3,000 on what's estimated a $6,000 mural, or $3,900 for what's estimated $78,000. Well, they actually have a quote for $7,800 on that update to the Prairie Street facade. And if you have a question or anything, fire up a hand. The ones, I'm going to go through the staff recommendations as well. Jasper's Pizza, that is one of the projects that's already completed. And that's the facade again with the garage door opening, and adds to the social district, adds to the downtown, opens up. I'm sure all of you have had the opportunity to see how it kind of transformed the whole front of that building. Staff's recommending approval at $8,175 for that project. And the Hideaway is another one that's been completed. That's the trellis bar with a whole look. And there's many studies that have shown if you can get these buildings opened up to be viewed from the outside through the building, that's going to draw people into the building, and is a positive excuse me, thing. So staff's recommending, again, a 50%. And we capped it at $15,000, so a $15,000 grant for that project that has been completed and was completed this spring. Excuse me. Reed and Associates at 120 East Prairie had multiple requests. Some met the parameters we were looking for, and some did not. Our recommendation, again, at a 50% funding level, would be a total of $4,424. Some of that has been completed, such as the painting of the building, but others would yet to be completed. But our recommendation is to approve that request up to a level of $4,424. R&R, looked at it. It's a great property beautification request, and this is to put Arvedi bush or pine, yeah, sure, those pine trees and grasses on their strip of property that's between the parking lot and the railroad bed. And that, again, staff's recommending that that level's approved to $4,171.50. On a side note, we are going to be asking the council next Monday for their authorization for me to submit a grant by November 1st to the railroad company that will go for a beautification project in the village-owned 2 properties down there, one next to the law office and then on the other side of the bridge as well. And what our ultimate goal is to try to make those 2 areas photogenic for like graduation pictures, wedding pictures, that type of stuff, to try to, but that again is not specific to this, but something we have going on at a staff level. Classic Mortgage on Michigan, many of you know Randy and Amy Miller are also in a catering business, and they're looking at moving their catering business to a takeout as well. This is a 2-part project they have. The first part is putting a 30 by 20 cement pad, which would be to the rear of that building or to the west, or maybe better physically described towards the park. They're the first building south of the parking lot. And the second part of that project is a really cool looking, what would I call that, a gazebo type covering for it, where then by next year they could have this takeout business that we feel would really enhance the use of the observation deck, Clark Park, and fits very well in that area. So staff is saying the part 1 request, which they can hopefully get in yet this fall or first thing in the spring, is that 30 by 20 cement pad at 50% is $5,940. In all of these projects, part of that formal letter would require the appropriate building permits. We'll have a checklist that everything has met zoning and in that for the documentation, but that'll be within that letter as well. We told them part 2, which that enclosure is $18,000. I anticipate presenting this program through the 23-24 fiscal year budget presentation, that that second part could be presented then as well. This is Kepco Properties is Apple Knockers. And this, I'll take some explaining. The building Apple Knockers, if you were looking at it, Kepco Properties, expanded that parking lot. They have the house, the garage, and the house in back. In the house, garage, and other house are in that commercial district still. So the garage, they're looking at transforming into pretty close replica of the Doris Lee building in the historic village to become a retail space for their products. So when we looked at the dollar amount, and I'm outside that 49,000, this we still feel it's an incredible improvement to that area, going with the classic mortgage, and that it's a gateway as it comes into downtown. What this staff is recommending is to go through the approval process, but we'll use 2023 dollars to pay to reimburse them on this project. I have talked to Paula about this, and they're still going to move forward, and so I can explain more if you have questions, but this would be an amount not to exceed $15,000, but that check wouldn't be issued till after July 1st of 2023. And the project is anticipated to be completed next spring prior to that. But it's transforming that building into a retail establishment. Flash Pottery on Main Street had multiple requests. Some met, some didn't. The ones that request for total approval is $3,317.50, and that's front facade improvements. Right now, if all of you are familiar with that building, kind of has thin windows, a real solid door, and they're looking to create an inviting gateway. So it would be a clear glass door frontage to go into the building. They do have some internal remodeling they're going to do, and part of the requirements for that is to get materials tested due to the age of the building. So it was deemed that there is a public benefit, so that includes $500 or 50% of the cost of that environmental testing of those materials. So, but the other 50% is all related to the entry door into the building. And that's it. That's the 9. There were 3 that were deemed that we could not expense public money with. And what this process and exercise outside of the book has shown us, roofs aren't ineligible in our evaluation. So what we'll do is the application process in future, certainly in 23, 24, we'll give specific examples. Hey, this, don't submit for a roof because it's not something that would proceed forward. And so that was 2 of them, and 1 just lacked detail on what the money would be expensed for. So that did not receive support. So 8 of the request would equal, an amount not to exceed $49,000. You would approve the project on Apple Knockers. I have explained to them that what will happen in that process, I know as I usually forecast out 3 years, looking at needs, wants, and wishes of what will come up. I know I will be presenting a public improvement grant program through the DDA for the 23-24, but as I explained to Paula, I don't have a vote, so that will first come to this group as the DDA on the overall budget, and then ultimately the council. So if the project gets approved, it still has to go through the budget process, so we have that program in place before I can write that check, and she understands that. I just wanted, if it meets this support and approval at this group, ultimate approval at the council, I think that will get that project across the finish line. So I'll pause there.
This is Member DeVault. This project or this grant program, in the future, we need to rename this grant program back to the original facade improvement program, because it's not a building if you go back to the thing at the top, look at the top of the application, it's confusing that it's a building improvement grant, where all these projects that we are approving are facade projects.
It's titled a property improvement, nothing about building. It would not be staff's recommendation to change the name, because there are many, many examples of which money could be expensed for something not on what traditionally is known a facade. But it's titled property improvement.
This is Member Wertella. We're looking at brick and mortar improvements here, long-lasting type of stuff. But I'm wondering about the Dollar General window screens. Is that going to go on for years and years and years? Or?
Hopefully, I believe. Okay. I mean, if you've seen Yeah, I know they'll, I have confidence with Frederick's construction, what they're involved in, that it would be long-lasting, as well as, you know, it's not to say he might not change it but I'm quite certain it'll be there for a while. And it'll really take away the look of looking at the back of the coolers.
I think it's an excellent idea. Thank you, Jim.
Chairman Schenkel, if I may. Jim, first off, kudos. I think this is a wonderful program, and we've talked about this before. I'm just curious, from your perspective, President Frisbee's perspective, how do you feel about the process? This is the first time we've done this, lessons learned. I mean, overall, what's the feeling of the committee, Chairman Schenkel also, that participated in? I'm just curious, you know, what your perception is.
I think with anything, there's, when you get back and do an after-action review, there's ways to improve everything. So certainly that'll be done from a staff level. I think in a perfect environment, by the time we got the grant application approved, I've had some comment that the 2 weeks wasn't enough to put together a grant request. I kind of counter it with 12 people certainly put the request together, but in a perfect world, I think I've told President Frisbee and Chairman Schenkel that it's my anticipation that the third Monday in April is when I'll present the DDA budget. So I'll present the budget to this group potentially as early as February, and then to the council in April. So once we get that approval, we'll be in a position to roll it out on May 1st and give people, because we're talking July expensed money, but in February, if it goes to this group, we can start talking about it with the DDA membership, if you will, or the businesses in, get the council approval and roll out the grant program. So a property or business owner will have like 6 weeks to put together the actual formal, and then it goes the full construction cycle. So if they were looking at a program, they could actually initiate that program in the spring of 24, just have it completed by June 15th of 24, might help out versus we're whatever we are 5 months into the fiscal year right now. So there was reasons that happened. We didn't have the program the year before. We had local people making substantial investments that we knew would improve downtown. That's why we presented and recommended and got support from the DDA and council to any project finished after July 1st would be eligible. So yeah, there's things in any of our events we debrief quite a bit, and this would be another one. And that's so. Again, Dan, so that's some of the things we've already discussed on how to improve it next year, get it ahead in the budget process, get it out educated. When the council approved it on a Monday night, Alex and I spent Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday walking to all the DDA businesses. I think by that Thursday or Friday, I attached it and sent it to our entire list. And then we re-walked down there to make sure people were aware of it and that. And I had multiple inquiries on it. So
thank you. And one thing I really appreciated in what you shared was the idea of looking longer. And I mean, really, Mr. Lee's got some great ideas, and talking with him, and I mean, the idea that Alex would be able to work with and talk with business owners and begin that process of looking critically at the business and saying, what really would you like to see? What improvements from a public-private venture can we come together on? And I think that's the exciting thing, is when you look at that from my perspective, I really think it creates a lot of opportunities for us.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a lot like the paint program. Once people, you know, started utilizing the paint program, it kind of grew, and people, it's an educational process. We plan on cutting a press release the week of October 17th to highlight the Village of Vicksburg's commitment to small businesses and our downtown. And again, hopefully that educates people locally, but it might draw attention from a potential future developer. You know, that, hey, I have an opportunity to move to a progressive community that's looking at opportunities for livable space for citizens from whatever area of the globe they come from. We welcome them here in Vicksburg with open arms, and that's the citizens and businesses alike. So we just want to keep putting Vicksburg in a positive light, that we're moving forward, and it's if at minimum curiosity brings them here, we think they'll be coming back once they find out what we have to offer.
Any other questions for village staff before we vote on the recommendation?
If I can ask, I think the order of preference, if I can ask someone to make a motion to approve amending the 22-23 fiscal year budget as it relates to the property improvement grant program to an amount not to exceed $49,000, which will be increased from the 36.
This is Member Cox. I so motion.
We have a motion on the table from Member Cox from the motion that Mr. Mallory had articulated. Do we have support for that motion?
This is Member Bishop. My support.
Support by Member Bishop. All right. So we have a motion to vote on the floor. Secretary DeBalt, can you take roll call, please?
Schenkel,
Yes.
Newman, Manchester,
Yes.
Wortella,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
DeLong, and DeVault, yes.
Village Manager Mallory, do we need another motion to approve the
Staff recommendations, if
Staff.
you're going to do all 9 recommendations, to approve the to support and approve the staff recommendations as presented.
I'll call for a motion.
Holmes, I make a motion that we approve all 9 of the proposed investments in the community as presented by Village Manager Mallory.
We have a motion from Member Holmes. Do we have support for that motion?
Member Manchester, I support it.
Manchester supported. Secretary DePaul, please take roll call.
Schenkel,
Yes.
Newman, Manchester,
Yes.
Wortella,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
DeLong, and DeVault, yes.
Okay,
Great.
thank you, and we'll present this to the council, and by non-quorumed email, I'll let you know the results of the council, but we thank you. Before I move on to the village manager's report, Chair Schenkel, if it's okay with you, turn the floor over to Village President Frisbee to say a few comments to the Planning Commission.
Absolutely. Welcome, President Frisbee.
Well, I'm not dressed for prime time. I was driving through the village with my lovely wife, and we saw a familiar flower fairy cutting down all the flower pots in the village. So I decided to jump out and helped her dig them all out and cut it all down. So, but thank you for everything you do here, your support tonight. This will go a long way with the community, right? So you asked the question of the village manager, Mallory. Yeah, there's a lot we learned, right? And I will say we erred on the side of caution. going into this. We'll learn from it. It'll get better and bigger and greater ideas to come, right, with this team here. So thank you all very much.
Updates, hopefully all of you will be able to participate this Saturday for a kickoff to celebrate 150 years of the village of Vicksburg. Alex Lee has led a team that I think has really put together a fun-filled day here in the village. Specifically, Main and Prairie will be shut down. I think we're up to 6 or 7 food trucks. We're going to have a band on Main Street, a different band on Prairie Street. We're going to have a tethered hot air balloon that I don't know how high it'll go up, if it's inches or a foot, but give people some type of feeling, so something unique to Vicksburg. President Frisbee will open up the remarks at a time. We'll get all this out through social media. But really looking forward to it, and it will propel into a couple other events that we have coming up. One being the Christmas in the Village in December, which is the second Saturday of December, I believe, and continuing to look at that event coming out of COVID. We had it last year, was our first main event, and is just incredibly attended. We plan on that continuing. Kudos to the Chamber of Commerce. And the council has approved in February, we're bringing back the Iceberg Festival downtown, which will, I think, be a great event to again have downtown. And that leads into, I'll be putting together a small group of individuals after this October's event that we are going to start planning downtown events for 2023. We're looking at Wednesday nights being a targeted night, and to have an event between Memorial and Labor Day every Wednesday is the place. Downtown Village of Vicksburg is the place to be. So we'll see if we can piece this all together and make some dominoes start to fall. But we want to create where people from outlying, not only our community, but outlying communities know if it's a Wednesday night, certainly come on to Vicksburg and in our downtown and get exposed to our retail shops and come back with 10 or 100 friends on the weekend as we continue to develop the buildings downtown and have all the rentable right now buildings filled, but certainly have plans in the future. So I'll pause there, see if there's any questions or comments from the members. The master plan, utility invoices are going to go out this week, and within that invoice will be communication on the master plan that will have a QR code. So in today's technology, you take your smartphone, hit that QR code, it will take you to a master plan survey for the village of Vicksburg. Those will be tracked, only that they're coming from that QR code, so it's a utility paying entity from the village of Vicksburg. And we will, potentially by October 17th, no later than the first meeting in November, we'll be listing out the locations of the public participation for master plan. All members, including each one at this table, is on an internal stakeholders list. So I envision contact will be made with you with some pre-questions being sent out, and we'll not only do specific surveys to specific internal and external stakeholders, but there'll be some roundtable discussions as well. This is still has 6-7 month of process, and the final product will go in front of the council. We're anticipating next May. So That's wanted to update you though, that to be looking at those utility invoices, they'll have that QR code, and they should, a week from now, arrive at everyone's house. So, I did, in case someone watched the council meeting, be doing a report next Monday to the council. I reported to the council, it's overall a very positive thing. The growth of this village is outpaced the Headley Amendment in 1978. So the millage rate is rolled back 0.1308 from where it was, which creates a small refund for our tax-paying citizens. The overwhelming majority of these refunds are less than $5. That's how close those two millage rates are. I reported to the council, based on information we received from the county, that we'd be cutting a refund check. We did have our attorney who guides us in this area, Steve Mann out of Miller Canfield. We had a contact at 7 o'clock Friday night. We have later this week a follow-up. But by the legislation, that refund we won't be sending checks to everyone. It will come off next year's tax bill. And the reason that is it's such a small amount, it will actually cost a lot more to the taxpayers if we were to send all these checks out, process them, versus simply creating it in the software. But we'll not only be notifying the council of that at the utility bills in December, that'll be fully detailed, so every citizen receives that as well. But this is my first public meeting since the contact and meetings with Steve Mann. So, and we'll be given a full report next Monday on that issue, but I wanted to bring that up. So I will accept. Oh, can I give the other news? Yeah. All right. We might as well share it then, but we'll go into more detail next Monday as well. The village will be initiating a program. We received grants totaling $500,000 for a program that will be able to assist the less fortunate in our community on owner-occupied housing. It's based on federal income levels at below a certain level, would be eligible for individual grants for these houses based on energy efficiency improvements. So roofs, furnaces, hot water heaters, new windows. And we submitted the grant request from the funding sources that we'd administer the grant at just staff time. We're not going to take an administrative fee on the grant. All $500,000 will be, and right now we're picking a level of 20 or 25,000. So we'll have our legal staff put together that application process, but that's been officially awarded. We received that news midweek last week. So we're up to this fiscal year now in excess of $5.6 million in grant money that the village has received for projects. And this actual grant program probably excites me the most, because I think we can really set it up to help people that are in need, and it will help our housing stock as well here in the village. So go into more detail next Monday with the council on that as well.
Jim, just curious, the 500,000, is that part of the recently passed Inflationary Act by Congress? Is that where the money's coming from?
No.
No? Okay.
No, it's a local foundation at $150,000, and then $350,000 from the grant process provided by Kalamazoo County using ARPA funds. And they had a section under housing. So so submitted a grant and collected all the data on how it could impact Vicksburg. That's the funding sources.
All right, thank you for that report, Manager Mallory. Next item on our list is member comments. Do we have any comments from this body here? Just want to say congratulations to Member Newman, Member Cox, and Member Holmes on your appointments. Appreciate your dedication to this group. I want to say thank you for your vote of confidence in me as your chairperson. It's a privilege of mine to serve in this capacity, and will do so until I am no longer needed at this post, so appreciate that as well. Lastly, I want to say again thank you to Mr. Mallory and his staff regarding these grant programs. This is a true rarity in a municipality of any size, let alone ours, that we have this kind of expertise and ability to seek out these grants, apply for them. That's a very time-intensive program, and then be awarded those bids. So it's good to have Mr. Mallory on our staff, and I think he's showing every bit of the reason why he's in the position he is, and the reason why Vicksburg is the position is. We have a great leader at the helm here, so appreciate all of your work, the time you've spent away from your family, and dedicating that towards this village is much appreciated from me.
Thank you very much, and recognize the whole team.
All right, the time is 8:22. I will call this meeting to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.